Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling something massive, something that affects so many people globally, chronic diseases.
It really is everywhere.
Yeah, and the numbers, they're just, well, staggering. You're looking at 41 million deaths a year worldwide. That's over 70% of all deaths.
Wow.
And just in the U.S., the cost is huge, $216 billion annually for the health system. But here's the thing we often miss. It's not just biological, right? These conditions have deep social, cultural, psychological impacts. They literally rewrite people's lives.
That's precisely it. And that brings us to our core idea for this deep dive, biographical disruption, often called BB.
BB.
Okay, it's a concept from sociology introduced by Michael Burry back in 1982. It gives us a really powerful way to understand the lived experience.
So our mission for you today is pretty clear. We want to unpack how chronic illness isn't just about the body.
Right.
It's about how it fundamentally rewrites your life story, your identity, who you are, your relationships, your plans, everything.
So think of this as your shortcut to really understanding that profound, often kind of hidden impact of long-term health issues.
Okay, let's dive in then. Burry's foundational work. He saw chronic illness as a, what did he call it, a critical situation.
Exactly. A critical situation, something that just fundamentally interrupts the structure of your daily life, your assumptions about it.
The things you just take for granted.
Totally. And what's really fascinating is how Burry was critiquing earlier ideas, like the medicalization thesis or Talcott Parsons' famous patient role.
The sick role, right?
Yeah. Burry argued those just didn't work well for chronic illness because, well, often there's no full recovery.
Right, it's not temporary.
No. So your place in society becomes uncertain, and your life story, your biography gets fundamentally changed. He talked about 3 key disruptions.
Okay.
Disruption in your habits and assumptions, the everyday stuff. Disruption in explanatory systems. You start questioning yourself, your identity.
Who am I now? That sort of thing.
Precisely. And third, a disruption in mobilizing resources, basically. All the effort you suddenly need to put in just to cope and adapt.
That makes a lot of sense. It sounds like it ripples way beyond just the physical experience.
Oh, absolutely. Far beyond the individual's body.
So how does that play out, like in work or socially?
Well, the sources really highlight this. It hits your work life, your economic situation, your social support. Think about it when your basic assumptions are shaken.
Yeah.
And your daily life changes so drastically, it can lead to real social isolation. Plus, you often face stigma associated with the condition.
That stigma part is huge, isn't it? Makes it even harder.
Definitely. That explores how people actively try to reconstruct who they are after this disruption, rebuild their sense of self.
Right, putting the pieces back together.
Exactly. Then you have liminality theory, describing that sort of in-between state. You're not fully well, but not acutely sick in the old way either. It's uncertain.
That limbo feeling.
Yeah. And on the flip side, there's self-management theory. This focuses more on proactive things people can do, strategies to actually kind of mitigate the disruption.
So taking some control back, that's hopeful.
It is. It shifts the focus from just reacting to proactively adapting to the new life circumstances.
So where do we actually see this concept, biographical disruption, being used in research, in clinics?
It's used quite a bit, actually, but the focus is uneven. The sources show it's most studied in conditions like cancer, stroke, HIV, AIDS.
Okay, the really major, often life-threatening ones.
Right. But here's the interesting part. There's a big research gap for other very common chronic illnesses. Things like fibromyalgia, COPD, irritable bowel syndrome, even really widespread conditions like hypertension or osteoporosis. Millions have these, but the biographical impact isn't studied nearly as much.
Wow, that's a really important point. So what does that gap mean?
Well, it means we're missing a big piece of the puzzle for millions of people. Understanding these gaps shows us where future research really needs to go.
Right.
If we analyzed BB in those less studied conditions, it could seriously change how we approach diagnosis, treatment, and especially ongoing support. It pushes for that more whole person care.
So to really bring it home for you listening,
Yeah.
this idea of biographical disruption, it's just such a vital lens.
It's absolutely indispensable.
It gets us past just looking at symptoms and helps us see the huge personal and social shifts people go through.
Yeah, and it really highlights why we need everyone involved in doctors, nurses, therapists, social workers. It needs to be multidisciplinary.
Because people aren't just managing a disease.
No, they're actively, constantly trying to make sense of and navigate fundamental changes to their entire life story. It's immense, often invisible work.
So here's something for you to think about. If we really embrace this idea of biographical disruption, how could that build deeper empathy in our communities? And maybe, how could it inspire us to create better, more compassionate, more holistic support for anyone facing these kinds of long-term health challenges? Really think about what it means to have your life story interrupted and rewritten